All right, good. So, yeah, Git is a software which keeps track of versioning of any sort of data. This could be Python files or even like Word documents it can keep track of. It just tracks the bits, ones and zeros. And so imagine you have a report and it's due in 2 weeks. And you know that you've got to like work out a bunch of different paragraphs as you're, going about it. Um, you could use Git to keep track of this data. I mean, Microsoft Word does that automatically with saving, but this is essentially a fancier save because with Git, you can have different versions of your data and look at it throughout the different versions, check out and go back to different times when it used to work. And yeah, it's just really helpful for coding mostly. So I'll write down a couple of good commands to start with. The first thing you do when you want to create a Git repository is you do Git init. And this just initializes the software to actually create the Git, version controlling. You would do this inside of a directory. So say you're in a folder called like the documents folder, and you want to keep track of the documents folder, you would do that from the terminal. So now we're in the terminal. A couple of basic things about terminal. dir, it gives you the list of all the folders in there. You could also do ls for the same thing. cd, let me write these down. We're gonna need these. So cd, with cd, you type the directory. So I could do cd documents. If I had a documents folder. Let's just make a directory. Oh yeah, there we go. Has anyone ever used this terminal before? No. Yes. You really it's kind of a hardcore coding thing, and it's a little scary to use this terminal, especially in public. You look like a hacker, but it's very helpful for getting stuff done. Like on a computer, like the computer just is pretty much a terminal, and then this very nice Windows desktop is also software on top of the terminal. Okay, so I made a directory called test. I'll go into the directory test. Now you can see here I'm in the test directory, and I'll do git init. Now it says initialized empty repository in, c.users, whatever. So now the test folder is a Git repository. And this is the init. Part of that, now that we have a folder called test, we could make some files. Let's call one file hello.txt. And now we could open that up just in any text editor. I'm using Sublime. And now this is the hello.txt inside of the test directory. If I were to add some data to this file, maybe I'll say hello quantum club and save it. Now, from Git's perspective, when it initializes the directory, there was nothing in there. But now you have a new file called hello.txt, and you could see that by typing git status. Git status is probably your best friend. If you're using Git, it tells you what files are untracked, meaning that Git has no idea about them. And actually tell you how to add it. So here we can see git add file. We could simply type that into the command line, git add hello.txt. And now this hello.txt file is being tracked by Git. And I'll do a couple of commits to show you guys how that sort of history works. So there's git init, and then nice. There's git add. And with that, we have test hello dot text. And so Git is sort of tracking this history of how this particular directory evolved from just being empty to now having something in it. And we could create a version of this test directory by typing git commit. And you have to write a message with commits just for some reason, I don't know. Well, I guess for like if you're working on a big project and you make like a little change, you're gonna want a descriptive way of like saying what is held within that commit. So I'll just make the message like hello.txt added to test directory. All right, now that's committed. And now this version of hello.txt was from our first commit. But if I were to make some changes, like saying these are changes, and save it, and then I go through the same process of git add hello.txt, git commit -m, made some changes. Now we're at 2 commits total. And you can see that using git log to see all the different commits that you made throughout the history of the directory. So here we can see the first commit was hello.txt added to test directory and then made some changes. But imagine if like instead of just being 1 and 2 lines, these were like a million lines, and I'm on the second commit, but I want to see what the first commit was like. What would I do? I would do git checkout. With git checkout, you can change the versioning of the repository based on this commit ID. So if I want to go back to this commit, copy that. Jeez, no copy on here. And now I went back to, it says switching to 4701, you're in detached head state. That means you're not at the last commit. And actually, if we now look back at hello.txt, it goes back to the original state. So you can sort of think of it as like every iteration, there's like a snapshot of, I guess the snapshot should really be around this. Like these are each different snapshots of the code throughout like different, like as you're going through the versioning, you gotta git commit. Whenever you do add, you should probably do commit just as a rule of thumb. There's a slight difference to this. Like say you have a file that you create, but you don't want Git to keep track of, then you would not add it. You only add things that you want Git to keep track of. And then commit creates the actual like snapshot. That's what takes the picture of the repository. And now I can go back. I'll do git log again. Let me write that. useful. Git status. Git log. And git checkout. Oh, we got it. 1863. So now I could do git checkout 1863 and check this again, and the changes are back. We're back to the last state. So now it's going to get a little complicated because we're going to talk a little bit about branching. Essentially what a branch does is, so you start it with init, and say you do git status. You start on, why is head detached? I don't know, it's fine. With branching, essentially what happens is whatever the final commit is where you branch from, you create a copy of it. So usually like the main branch is just called main. That's what I was working on. But say I wanted to create a different branch and call it, I don't know, development. What git branch will do is create essentially a copy of this snapshot, sort of like parallel to the main branch. And what this does is that as you keep going along and adding more versions to the data, these branches don't interfere with each other. Like you could have one person working on this branch, another person working on that branch. Actually, let me talk about your projects for a second. Have you guys started a repository? Anyone? The groups? So yeah, somebody started a repository. You guys are going to pull the main repository from the cloud and then work on it on different branches. So that's how you guys don't interfere with each other's code. And then after you create a branch, after like a little bit down the line, you may want to merge this branch back into the main branch. And that's a whole different process. It's kind of a headache. Honestly, like the first 4 years of using Git, it's going to be a headache. And there's going to be a lot of times where you delete your own code and you have to stay up until 2 a.m. redoing it. So Git, it's a very powerful tool, but it's kind of unforgiving. Well, as long as you do it right. As long as you don't, let me write this down. Never use Git reset. It's just a bad idea. It'll be better off if you just never touch that. And then you won't have problems. But that's, yeah, just keep that in mind. So I've reset my code and stayed up until 2 a.m. before. It's not fun, but it's that's the lesson I learned. I can sort of, let's see, I'll make a git checkout master. So now I'm gonna try. No, I'm not gonna reset this repository. Yes, it helps. But like 99% of the time, you're not gonna need reset. And it's much more likely that you will be regretting that decision. So that's just my advice. You can use reset if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it. But now I'll try making a branch called development. And now git checkout development. And now that I'm in branch development, you could see that it's actually the same as the master branch. It just created a copy from branching. And so now that the point of another point of having a main and a development branch is, say you've got like this nice looking application, say you're, you know, designing like Google, and you have like the 2000 version of Google that was just like had like terrible graphics and was slow and just not fun. You want the main Google to keep working, but then on the side, like if you're a developer, you want to add cool stuff to Google, you know, add Gmail, add calendar, add all different stuff. You would do that in a side branch. So then you don't affect this main branch, which is like your final product. Um, and then once you've proven that your development is good and it's stable, and you'll do like tests and stuff, then you merge it back in. So I'll demonstrate merging here by now we're in the development branch. We'll say this is a new feature. Save it, git add. You can also do -A to just add -capital A to add everything. It's a little easier than typing out all of the files you have. Git commit. Probably. Yeah, there are multiple ways to skin a cat. Git commit new feature, because keep in mind, right now we're in the development branch, not the master branch. And so if we make a new feature in this branch, and then we go back to master, the new feature isn't there. But now here comes the final part. We can do git merge development. Let me pause before I go on. Can I show the tree? What is a git tree? There is no way to view the tree. There's only commit history in Git. When you see like trees and stuff from Git, that's a third-party software that's looking through the commit history and designing that tree. But Git itself doesn't do that. But so right now we're on master and it doesn't have the feature. But if we want to add the feature, now that we've proven that the feature is like good, we do git merge development from the master branch, and then it'll sort of figure it out and it'll incorporate the new feature. So that's it. Init, add, commit, branch, merging. Let me draw one more arrow for git merge. And the thing with merge is that like you can keep working on this branch and keep working on that branch, like, and then merge at any point in your history. Like if there were 10 commits in development, but you only want to merge like the fourth commit, then you can look through the history and pick out that snapshot in history. I'm kind of getting to the end of the time, but I did want to go over pull and clone. Yeah, that's fine. Do you guys know how to clone? Git clone? Have you set up SSH keys? No. Oh, geez. Well, that's, yeah, I gotta explain. So an SSH key is essentially GitHub's way of proving that you are the person that like you're interacting with, because many people on the internet may take your IP address and try and impersonate you in order to steal your code, but we use keys to ensure that it's all good. And so if you guys haven't set up your keys yet, you'll go to GitHub settings, SSH and GPG keys, and you're gonna make a new SSH key. But you should really look at this guide and follow the steps, because I'm probably not gonna go over like how to do the SSH key, but just know that you need it in order to access the cloud GitHub. And so when you do that, after you've made your SSH key, you can go to your repositories. Presumably, your group leader would share it with you. And so this is, which one? I'll reclone this one. So when you guys actually start working on your projects, you're gonna want to go in GitHub and click on this little code thing, and we'll say SSH. It'll give you this URL to use, and so you take that URL and you go into a directory. You go into a directory and you do git clone, and then you paste the URL from GitHub. And now this is the point where we're actually dealing with not only Git, but also GitHub, which is like a sharing software for Git repositories. And then once you do this, you git clone,